Hi everybody, Michelle McClunan, Astrologer and Life Navigator, and I'm bringing you an astrology update for the next full moon, which is happening on the 23rd of May. Full moon's always a time of culmination, where the moon reaches its peak of its cycle. 2 weeks ago we had a new moon in the sign of Taurus, and now the full moon is happening in the sign of Sagittarius, opposite the sun in Gemini. The sun has only just moved into Gemini, so that's the beginning of this kind of more airy activity energetically, and followed by now this full moon, which is opposite the sign of Gemini in the sign of Sagittarius, which is what we call mutable fire. First of all, this is quite an abundantly blessed full moon. It's actually a very positive, optimistic full moon. Now, you might not be feeling that energy just yet. You might be feeling overwhelmed. You might be feeling a buildup of energy. You might even be feeling anxious. There's quite a lot of air and quite a lot of fire. And on the subject of fire, we've had a lot of solar flares. They call them X-class solar flares. And obviously we are connected to everything and all that is. So that can have an effect on our moods, on our energy levels. Some people have reported that they're exhausted, or they're getting very bad headaches, or their sleep cycles are being interrupted. So that is not really astrology, it's more astronomy, what's happening in the skies above us. But obviously everything is connected. So if you are feeling that energy and you feel the need to rest, rest. If you feel a little bit off, don't worry, you're aligning. There are a lot of light codes coming in, and we're adjusting to these new energies in some way. So just that's a little caveat before I start with the full moon in Sagittarius. So full moon in Sagittarius is a beautiful full moon already, because Sagittarius is the sign of expansion. It's a mutable fire sign, and I see Sagittarian energy as, you know, you've lit the fire in the fire grate, and now the sparks of fire are flying out of the fire, wanting to spread good news and higher meaning and good philosophies out into the universe, out into the cosmos. The archetype of Sagittarius is half man and half horse. So he's very grounded in reality. He's very grounded on the earth, and then he's actually pulling his arrow back and setting his arrows off. So there's a certain amount of the Sagittarian energy that needs to be considered, which is that we are on earth, but we have these bigger, larger perspectives and larger views. So when you look at the full moon, we always look to see what the ruler of the full moon is. And the ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter, the biggest planet in our solar system. Now, Jupiter is aligned at the same degree at this full moon with Venus, the planet of love. And both of them are at the very, very, very end of Taurus. So over the last year, we've actually had Jupiter moving through the sign of Taurus. It's a very regular cycle, Jupiter. Jupiter takes 12 years to go all the way around, and so it spends about 1 year in each sign. So I think it was last June, Jupiter entered into Taurus, and that's where it's been ever since. And now we're at the final degrees of that journey. So it's kind of beginning the end of that opportunity cycle, because Jupiter is the planet of opportunity. There could be something that's ending in terms of the way you deal with abundance, with your life, in terms of your perspectives, in terms of your beliefs, as Jupiter ends his journey through Taurus, and in a couple of days after the full moon begins his journey in Gemini. That's another subject that I'll speak to you about. Okay, so at full moon, we have Jupiter and Venus very tightly conjoined. It's called a conjunct in astrology. And those two are very closely aligned with the sun, although the sun has shifted into Gemini. So there's quite a sort of a lot of energy all in one part of this chart. And if you look at the two benefics, which is Jupiter and Venus, they're called the two benefics, which means that they're the two beneficial planets. We break that down and we see what this full moon really holds. First of all, they're the brightest planets in the sky when we can see them. They are known, the conjunction, the coming together of them, is known as one of the luckiest conjunctions that we have because they're beneficial planets. It suggests manifestation of some kind, expansion, the love of beauty. Taurus is the sign of Mother Earth. It's the sign that is ruled by Venus. So Venus, when she's in Taurus, is actually very happy. Venus is beautiful in Taurus because they're aligned, and Venus rules Taurus. So Venus in Taurus is the love of beauty, the love of Mother Earth. It's the love of creativity. Venus represents relationships. It represents money in the sense of how what we value. It represents self-value as well. And with Jupiter, aligned with Jupiter, that kind of brings abundance to all of that. It brings expansion to all of that. So this could be expanded awareness in terms of your resources, in terms of how you earn your money. It could be expanded awareness in terms of relationship issues, because Venus is the relationship planet. It could mean that there's an expanded abundance, just generally. There's a feeling of abundance. There's a feeling of expansion. Jupiter is the planet of wisdom, of higher learning, higher perspectives. So whenever Jupiter's in the picture, we're going to be looking at what we believe to be true. It's the planet, and Sagittarius is the sign, that relates to the truth seeker. Where do we find our truth? Where do we find true beauty? Where do we find true abundance? Where do we find our wisdom? How do we become more wise? So every time Jupiter makes a sort of a journey through a sign, we get to experience different aspects of that. And it's been in the sign of Taurus over these last few years, which has kind of helped us to see and connect with possibly the Mother Earth, with our own bodies, with our self-worth, with building our foundation in some way. It could be a physical foundation, it could be a spiritual foundation. So those are all things associated with Jupiter in Taurus. Now, this is very connected, obviously, because Jupiter is the ruler of the full moon in Sagittarius. So what happens is Jupiter definitely gets pulled into the picture of the full moon. So that's why I kind of say that this is it's a positive full moon. But bearing in mind that there's always stuff going on, there's always shifts, and these planetary energies are always working with our charts in different ways. The other reason that we would see this as positive is that the full moon is in a very positive alignment. It's called a sextile with the planet Pluto, which I've spoken a lot about over the last year, because Pluto has just moved into the sign of Aquarius, which is transformation. It's giving the power back to the people. It represents liberation. It can sometimes mean revolution. It can sometimes be people standing up for their sovereignty and their rights, which we're seeing all over the world. So the moon is in a very beautiful alignment with Pluto. So that's aiding our transformation. This full moon is helping us to see things from a higher perspective. Very often when we're caught up in the drama of life, we can't see the meaning. We can't see why something's happening. We are souls that have had many lifetimes. So from the soul perspective, this is all perfect, whatever's playing out. But many times as humans, we can't see the perfection. So this full moon and these times are saying, yes, but you're not just human. And whatever's happening in your life is happening for a very good reason, to put you in the place where you can actually evolve and grow and transcend your limitations of separation, of smallness, of disempowerment. So I see this as a step in that direction. So the moon is also in a trine, which is also a positive connection or alignment with the planet Neptune. Neptune is our planet which rules our spirituality, our connection. It's highlighting that even though there's so much separation in our world, we are actually joined, we are connected, we are never separate. So whatever's happening out there is happening in here. Astrology is the study of that. It's one of them, as is the microcosm, as is the macrocosm. Whatever's happening out there, on some level, is happening here too. Whatever's happening here, on some level, is happening out there. Whatever state that I'm in ripples out into my field, into the field around me. And that can ripple in as well. So we are basically positioned to take full responsibility for how we feel and what we're putting into the field, what we're feeding into the field. And this full moon, I believe, is showing us that it's showing us ways that we can do that. What's also happening at this full moon is Venus is in its own sign of Taurus, and Mars, the masculine planet, is in its own sign of Aries. So there's a balancing here of masculine and feminine energies as well. So not all too much doing, but enough being and enough doing. Enough groundedness on the earth so that we can actually send those arrows of wisdom and beauty into the world. A few days after the full moon, Jupiter moves into the sign of Gemini, as I've said, and also Venus moves into the sign of Gemini. That makes two big moves into air signs, and Pluto's already in an air sign. So we're having there's quite a big shift from earth signs into air signs. Where Jupiter moves into Gemini, there's a more of a focus on community, on communication, on networking, on lightness, on curiosity, on learning, studying. This is a very good, these are very good alignments to study something new. If you're curious about something new, this is a very good time to do that. Also to just bring into your awareness the 12-year cycle. So what were you doing 12 years ago when Jupiter moved into Gemini, left Taurus and moved into Gemini? It would have been around about this time as well. What was happening then for you? What have you completed in that cycle? What have you learned? How is your wisdom these days? What is your bigger knowing, your intuitive knowing? What is your connection? What is your philosophy? What is your connection to all that is? Where is your spiritual belief? Those are all questions that we will ask now with Jupiter moving into a new sign. I see this also as a very, very good time to look at things like how do we find our abundance? Where do we find our abundance? And more importantly than that, what came to me when I was looking at the energies of this full moon is gratitude. Is when we're in a difficult state, when things aren't necessarily going the way we'd like them to go, with the way our human part of us would like them to go, when they're not flowing as well as we would like them, when we have a financial issue, when we have a physical issue, a relationship issue, a job issue, how do we actually shift our vibration? How do we shift our state, our inner state? And one of the ways that we do that is gratitude. Because at any time, in any place, at any moment, we can connect with the energy of gratitude. And gratitude is very aligned with this full moon, because Jupiter and Venus together kind of say, look at the beauty around you. Look at the blessings that you have. Look at this beautiful earth that supports us and nourishes us and feeds us and shines its light on us and gives us water to drink, to bath in. We're given everything that we actually need. So it's for us to actually really connect with those things that you're grateful for the people that we're grateful for our homes, for the money that we do have, for the job or the work that we do have, for the people that we have in our lives, to be grateful as much as possible, because that then expands that energy and grows it. And that's what this full moon's about. It's about growth. It's about expansion. It's about learning, higher learning. It's about connecting to the bigger picture and not seeing us as small, weak, disempowered little people, because we're not that. We're actually very powerful, particularly when we're aligned with our true beingness. I pulled a card from the Divine Feminine book by Megan Watterson, and what card came up but Fatima, the mother of imams. Now this is all about gratitude, which is really interesting. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Fatima embodies the love and fulfillment that comes from living in a state of gratitude. She was born in the early 7th century and is the only child of Khadija and the Prophet Muhammad to live into adulthood. She cared for Muhammad after her mother died. When your soul selects this card, we can get caught up in the ego's idea of who we need to become or what we need to achieve. Fatima is the grace that sweeps through our seemingly complex lives and reminds us of what's core, what's solid earth to soul. Family, even if family means a few beloved friends. What matters most is the love and gratitude we bring to those who are there for us, and the love and gratitude we feel when they show up for us. Nurturing, protecting, and taking care of the ones we love can be a sacred occupation. Fatima is also a call to step back, take a deep breath, and take an inventory of how much you can feel grateful for right now in this moment. She releases you from unreal expectations of yourself. Whether you have mothered a child, a friend, or yourself, Fatima helps you to see, again, the vital role of the nurturer that it provides. She offers the perspective that says love is the family we all belong to, and gratitude is the state of wealth we get to live in. Soul voice meditation. What am I most grateful for in this moment? Intention. Love is my lineage, and gratitude is my religion. So I think that really does sum up a lot of what this full moon is about. It's about raising our consciousness into the state of gratitude. It's about seeing the bigger picture. Even though things might be difficult, even things might be very challenging, is to bring ourselves back to the knowing that everything is perfect, despite our current perception. And that if we can find gratitude in each moment, it comes back, it brings us back home, brings us back into alignment. So this full moon, take some time to let go, release whatever it is that you don't need. Maybe that's fear, maybe that's anxiety. Know that you're connected, know that you're supported by Source, that you always have been, that you always will be. Know that there's a bigger picture, even though you can't see it. And bring yourself over and over back into gratitude. It really helps to write down 3 or 5 or 10 things every night that you're grateful for. And you can do the same in the morning. It's interesting to see how that list changes and how you then start to look for gratitude during your day. Could be just a very simple thing. Light shining on a flower. Light shining into a room. A beautiful glance that somebody gives you. A word that someone says. Stroking a cat. Whatever it is that brings you into that state of grounded awareness will really sort of bode well for this full moon. I hope that that has helped you in some way. If you like this, please would you share it and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and the notification button will be there as well. And if you are looking for a reading to see how these things play out in your chart, I am available. I have a little bit of a delay, but you can get hold of me through my website, and the details are below. Thanks for listening, and have a beautiful full moon.